Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're all having a very nice day. My name is Nick Laboda, and as you may or may not know, I've been your account manager for some time. And today's webinar is going to share with you a couple of different tools that you could potentially use to maybe address the concern of digital cheating, whether from a proctored environment or from a non-proctored environment. Today's demonstration should probably only take anywhere between 40-45 minutes. I'll be more than happy to stay on as long as you need me to answer any questions that you might have at the end. So if you don't mind, please just holding those questions to the end. I will be more than happy to address them at this time. What I've done for the sake of the demo, I've put you on mute just for the demonstration component of it. I know there's some background distractions that may occur on your end, and that can't be helped. So I just want to try to keep everything as clear as possible. So without further ado, why don't we jump in and get started? So first of all, what I'd like to do is share with you some of the challenges that a lot of our customers face, and I'm sure you probably are also facing these same obstacles when it comes with either teaching online directly or from an administrator role in terms of working with online programs indirectly. What we've seen over the past several years that we've been with Respondus are some major challenges to online assessments. The first and foremost being the concern of digital cheating. It's probably the #1 way if students are cheating online is simply looking up quiz questions, whether it's copying and pasting that information into a search bar online, finding an answer and then copying that answer back into the quiz to complete it. It's probably the #1 way that we've seen cheating across the board. So one of the goals today is hopefully to address that concern. Also, accessing external resources. We know in this day and age that technology is readily available at the tips of all students, whether they have a smartphone, a tablet, any type of mobile device, laptop computer, you name it. In this day and age, technology is just readily accessible by anyone. So with that being said, we want to make sure that we can address all those different types of ways to prevent digital cheating on other devices as well. Protecting the integrity of the exam content we know is very important to you as the instructor. We know you spend a lot of time and energy putting forth high-quality courses and high-quality assessments, and we just want to make sure that we can protect that as best we can. Students can manipulate information and look up answers. It's kind of a shame that they're able to do that. So we want to preserve that as best we can. Student identity is also a very important topic. I recently was attending the SACS accreditation conference just this last December, and one of the things that I took away from the conference was that the federal government is looking to implement that all institutions at some point in the near future have ways to help confirm student identity if you're offering a fully online program. So right now, your learning management system login credentials will suffice, but over a period of time, there's going to be other types of tools that you're going to need to put in place in order to help confirm that, for sure it's the right student that's taking that assessment. And then flexibility and convenience, I wouldn't say really is a challenge, but I think it's just more of how can we afford this luxury to those students that are truly paying for that fully online experience, so that way they don't have to always come on campus to do on-site testing. How can we give them that freedom to be able to do testing from home for that matter? So today's demonstration is going to focus on a couple of different products that are purposely designed to address all of those concerns. The first part of today's presentation is going to focus on LockDown Browser. LockDown Browser has been around since about 2006. I think it was utilized on about 34 million assessments alone just last year. And it's truly ideal more for a proctored environment. If you have a testing center, computer lab, or local library, and you have a proctor in the room, well then that LockDown Browser is really designed to prevent students from opening up another tab or another window to quick look up an answer when the proctor turns their back. So that's really truly how LockDown Browser should be used on its own. And then you couple that with Respondus Monitor. Respondus Monitor essentially incorporates a webcam component, so that way it will actually capture the student's testing session while they're taking the assessment. So that is the type of product you would use for that non-proctoring environment where students might want to do testing from home or other places. So let's start off by discussing LockDown Browser. just to give you an idea of how this works. It's really important to kind of talk about LockDown Browser first because the architecture that is built around Respondus Monitor relies heavily upon LockDown Browser. So it's important to get a full foundation of how LockDown Browser first before you can fully understand how does Respondus Monitor work. But LockDown Browser is a browser like any other. So think of it as a browser similar to Internet Explorer, Safari, or Firefox, or whatever you're accustomed to using. But our browser's sole purpose is to provide security for online testing. Today we're going to focus on how it integrates seamlessly within Blackboard. Excuse me. So when students are using LockDown Browser, it's essentially preventing all forms of digital cheating on that device. I know that's a really broad statement to make, so I just want to kind of talk about a couple bullet points here to further drill into my point. Prevent students from doing the simple things such as copy, paste, and printing. As I had mentioned before in my example about digital cheating, that's pretty much what students are doing with quiz questions, is copying and pasting into a search bar, looking up answers. So our browser will prevent that from occurring. We've also seen in the past students running screen capturing as well as screen sharing programs. Snagit and Camtasia are just a couple of examples of that. And what students will do is actually run those programs in the background, record their entire testing session, and then send that program out to their friends so they can actually see every single question that was answered during that entire assessment. That's a really good and easy way for students to share information back and forth and cheat. So our LockDown browser will prevent any of those programs from running while the assessment is in place. Also prevents students from surfing the web and looking up answers to quiz or test questions. Prevents them from instant messaging friends while they're taking an assessment, Facebooking each other, Skyping, or even accessing any other type of browser. So it really does do a good job to create a very stable testing environment to prevent any of these types of challenges from occurring. So I'd like to start off today's demo and just show you what it looks like from the instructor's role. Just want to kind of explain how easy it is to apply that setting to an exam on a case-by-case basis. So basically, the LockDown browser can be dictated by you. You can decide which exams require the use of it and which ones don't, because some testing probably doesn't really necessarily require the use of LockDown browser. If you're doing project-based testing and that type of thing, probably wouldn't make sense to use it on that type of assessment. But if you're doing your standard assessment, multiple choice, true, false, essay, short answer, basically any type of question type that Blackboard supports, then LockDown browser would be very useful. For your knowledge, it's a simple building block integration. Once that building block is in place, it's going to open up a new setting within the course tools section within Blackboard. So what I'd like to do now is just actually log into Blackboard as an instructor and just kind of walk you through the steps and how easy it is to enable the use of LockDown browser. First step is to log into Blackboard. Simply select whatever course that you're currently teaching. And then again, once the building block is in place, all you need to do is click on the course tools section within Blackboard over here to the left, and then simply require LockDown browser down here at the bottom left-hand corner. Once I select that link, it's going to show me every exam that exists within this particular course. So you'll see all the exams on the left-hand side of the screen. To the right of that, you'll see a LockDown browser column. And to the right of that, you'll see a monitor webcam column. We'll talk about the monitor piece in just a little bit. But for now, we're going to require LockDown browser for the Psychology Week 7 quiz. To do so, we just click on the drop-down menu, select Modify Settings, simply require LockDown browser for this exam. Then we have some optional settings that will appear. There's a test password setting that you can choose or choose not to use. This is very similar to Blackboard's old native password. So basically, it requires that a student have to type in a password before they can access the exam. Basically, you're just putting another layer of security in place, so the student will have to type in that password. So again, it's not required, it's optional. So if you decide that you want to use it, you can either use Blackboard's native password or you can use the LockDown browser. You don't have to apply it in both places. It's just an either-or option for you, whichever one you're more comfortable with. And then there's some advanced LockDown browser settings below. You can choose to lock students into the browser until the exam is complete. You can allow students to take this exam using an iPad. So we do have an iPad initiative in place. Your students can simply go to iTunes, download the LockDown browser app for free. And then once you check this box here, then that will allow the student to be able to use the iPad for either LockDown browser and or Respondus monitor, for that matter. And if you have students that require the use of screen reading applications, we do allow students to run those programs in conjunction with LockDown browser. So those students that require the use of that, you would just simply type in their usernames here, followed by commas, and then that would allow the LockDown browser to allow those programs to run in conjunction with it. But for today, I'm not going to enable either of these options. I'm just simply going to lock the student into the browser. You'll notice the monitor webcam settings below, but again, we'll come back to that in just a few short moments. We'll hit save and close over to the right, and then that's it. That's really all you need to do. The instructor's role is very simple. You can see that this quiz now requires LockDown browser, and the LockDown browser column is required in green. So from a visual standpoint, you know very easily that you had enabled things properly. Okay, let's go ahead and switch gears and talk about the student perspective, because truly the students are going to be the main users of the software. So let's kind of explain how it works for them. So the software itself is a client application. However, the installation of the browser is web-based. What we do is we provide you with a unique URL that is unique to your institution. So if you have LockDown browser, then your LockDown browser will only work for your institution's version of Blackboard. And that browser can be installed anywhere you want students to do testing, whether it's locally on your testing center, computer labs, local library computers. Your IT folks can push out the installation of the browser on multiple machines at once if necessary. Or students can install it on their own personal machines, such as the use if they were going to use Respondus Monitor, for example. And we purposely made the installation process easy enough so that way anybody can install it. It's a one-time install. Once it's there on your computer, it sits either directly on your desktop if you're a PC user. If you're a Mac user, you'll find it directly in your applications folder. But again, we have Windows, Mac, as well as iPad versions available for that. And then once it's installed, it sits directly here. So you can see I'm running a PC. Here's an example of what the browser will look like. So what the student will do is simply click on the browser in order to now access that exam. And what it's going to do, it's going to take them directly to your Blackboard login page. So from here, students will log into Blackboard with their Blackboard login credentials. And at this point, they'll go into whatever course that they're currently enrolled in. And then they'll simply walk through the steps necessary in order to access that quiz. So if you look over to the left, we'll click on the content area. Up here at the top, you'll see the Psychology Week 7 quiz, and it clearly states that it requires LockDown browser. And since we're using LockDown browser, we're now able to access it. We click on that, hit begin, and it will then launch the student into the Blackboard testing environment. So now what I'd like to do is just kind of talk about what LockDown browser is doing on the screen. If you're looking around the screen, you're going to notice that there's some key elements that a normal browser would have that have been stripped away. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to notice that the ability to navigate within Blackboard has been disabled. Once we launch the quiz or the test, whatever you want to call it, the exam will say, students are now locked here. They can't go anywhere else. We want them to be here. You'll notice that your file edit menu bar up here has been removed, so the ability to copy, paste, and print has been taken away. You'll notice in the middle of the screen that the URL address field has been stripped away, so students aren't able to type in any other URLs and surf the web. Upper right-hand corner, the ability to minimize and maximize have been taken away. More importantly, the ability to close out of the browser has been disabled. So this will prevent any purposeful closures as well as any accidental closures of the browser. If you look across the bottom of the screen, moving from left to right, you'll notice that the Start button as well as the System and Application tray are completely covered over. So even if it was possible to get a program to run in the background, there's no way to get behind the browser because the right-click menu on my mouse isn't working, the Alt tab is no longer functioning, function print screen, any type of short keystroke combination or quick launch or shortcut combo, dual monitors are blocked, VMware is shut down, you name it. Anything you can think of that a student can use to manipulate and look up answers for the assessment, all of those programs are being shut down in the background. But what LockDown browser is not doing is that it's not changing or modifying any Blackboard quiz settings. So if you like to put other parameters or deterrents in place during the assessment, such as question-by-question delivery to try to, prevent students who have watchful eyes or wandering eyes to look on their fellow peers' computers. Time limits, randomization, all these different types of things that also are deterrents. All of that stuff will still work within the use of LockDown Browser. And in fact, LockDown Browser gives you flexibility in terms of whatever type of advanced formatting that Blackboard supports. I know students personally love taking online courses as opposed to paper and pencil courses because of the different types of things you can actually do with digital technology. So for example, in this quiz that I put together, I have some images included, some hyperlinks, some PDFs, and that type of thing. So you can still incorporate that into your assessment if you want to. So if you like to include audio clips or video files or whatever they might be, LockDown Browser will give you that. And in fact, in question number 1, I simply embedded an image just to give you an idea of what it would look like. Question number 2, instead of embedding an image, I decided to link out to an image somewhere on the web. The nice thing about linking out to areas on the web is that the area that you're pointing your students to, all links surrounding that page are being blocked by the application. So you can see that I'm pointing to an image of Sigmund Freud here, but if you look in the upper left-hand corner, all the links that I click on are being blocked. And there's even a little note indicating the block here. So keep in mind that no matter what I try to do on this page, I'm still preserved in the integrity of LockDown Browser. So really all I can do is simply view this image to help answer the question. And you can link out to anywhere, whether it's a YouTube video or an audio clip or a PDF or whatever it is. Feel free to link out to anywhere on the web if you like. Once I've viewed this image, I can simply exit out of the box and simply take me back to the assessment. And I can click on this link as many times as I need to in order to help me answer the question. Question number 3, instead of linking out to a website, I just simply linked out to a PDF file. And this is just giving a PDF of some of the brain systems for reading, again, to further help the student better answer the question. Question number 4 is just pointing out that it's a word processor will actually work within here. I'm not going to type any answers of really any relevance for the sake of time. And question number 5 is just simply stating that, it's supporting true, false, and any type of question type that Blackboard supports. So at this point, I'm going to submit it. We're going to go ahead and confirm the assessment submission. We'll click on OK. And now that the exam has been delivered to Blackboard's gradebook, I can now safely exit out of the browser and return back to where I was a few moments ago. So for the sake of time today, what I'd like to do is just kind of show you a screenshot of what would happen if a student tried to access an exam that requires LockDown Browser, but they're using a normal browser to do so. So this is just an idea of a sample error message that the student would receive. And it basically states that the assessment requires that you use LockDown Browser, start LockDown Browser, and navigate back to this assessment to continue. So if you already have LockDown Browser on your machine, you would just simply realize your error, go back to your desktop, go back into the browser to access the quiz. Or if you haven't installed the browser already, make sure that you actually download the browser first before you go back to take the assessment. So again, this is just giving you peace of mind that students can access that exam using a normal browser. So again, LockDown Browser is designed to add that security for online testing. Our goal is to eliminate all forms of digital cheating on that computer. We're also looking to help instill instructor confidence in online testing. That's our goal. We want you to feel confident that the information that you're putting out there is being preserved as best as we can. So in a proctored environment to address digital cheating, LockDown Browser is all you need. I've talked to customers that have had 2 or 3 proctors walking around the room, and students were still cheating on computers that didn't have LockDown Browser because they can quickly open up another tab or another window, look up the answer, then shut it down. So with LockDown Browser in place, that's not going to happen. So when the proctor turns their back and facilitates around the room, you can feel peace of mind that everything is fine on those computers. But in a non-proctored environment, LockDown Browser does not address 2 key concerns. The first concern is a pretty obvious concern. If a student was using LockDown Browser from home, well, what's to prevent them from using another computer or a smartphone or a tablet or a textbook or even a group of friends for that matter? LockDown Browser on its own, can't address that concern. And also student identity. Outside of your Blackboard login credentials, LockDown Browser doesn't know if it's the right student taking the assessment. Or a normal browser, for that matter, doesn't know that either. Any student could say, hey, you could take this exam for me. I'll pay you whatever monetary amount that you want, and I'll give you my Blackboard login credentials to log in and take the assessment. So we want to make sure that we know it's the right student taking that assessment. So that's where we create a Respondus monitor. A Respondus monitor is purposely designed to address those two key concerns. Now, Respondus monitor is a companion product for LockDown browser. But this product incorporates the student's own webcam and video technology to record the student's testing session. So this is what you would use for a non-proctor testing environment. And again, it fully integrates seamlessly within Blackboard. Now, what I mean by companion product, basically a few different things. The integration component is one and the same. It's one building block, and it will actually cover both applications. The browser that the students will use will still be exactly the same. So if they're going to use Respondus Monitor, they don't have to learn a new piece of technology. They simply still use the LockDown browser. The Respondus Monitor settings are accessed from the same dashboard, as you probably remember from a few moments ago. And the admin of the license can simply enable the use of Monitor at any given time. It's just simply a switch that you turn on within your Respondus control panel area, and then you would see that column for Respondus Monitor magically appear. So what I'd like to do is just go back in. I'm going to show you how easy it is to set up an exam to require the use of both tools. And then once I've done that, I'll show you what the end result looks like. So you can see what it looks like when a student uses this tool to take an assessment. And then I'll quickly go back in as a student to give you an idea of what their experience will be like in using the LockDown browser. Okay, let's log back into Blackboard. So I'm already actually logged in here. I didn't log out from before. Now I'm going to take that same quiz here, and now I'm going to turn on Respondus Monitor. Now you still always have to turn on LockDown browser first, because we want to preserve the integrity of the computer first, because we want to prevent digital cheating there before a webcam can start doing its job. So we always turn on LockDown browser, and then below you have the monitor webcam settings. You can turn on Respondus Monitor for everyone for this exam. So let's say that you teach a fully online course and you want to make sure all of your students are using this tool. Well, then you could select this option here. Or you can give your students a choice. You can say you can either stay at home and use Respondus Monitor, or if you don't have a webcam or if you don't want to use this tool, well then simply come on campus and use LockDown browser in one of our proctored sites. So that way you're not forcing the use of this tool on a student. You're simply giving them a choice of which option that they prefer. And then once you choose which option you want to use, well, now the student will have to go through a startup sequence before they can get to that assessment. Now the startup sequence, we want to confirm a few different things. First and foremost, with the webcam check, we want to make sure that they have a working webcam first before they use this tool. This webcam will do both a video and an audio check to determine that their webcam is functioning properly. And then once we've confirmed that their webcam is working, well then we have a couple of different ways to help confirm student identity. The first step is to have the student take a photo of themselves. And this simply is where the student will take a photo of themselves using their webcam. It's just like taking a quick snapshot. And that piece alone can be used as one means to confirm student identity. You can ask students to show any type of ID. Typically, institutions will ask students to show their institution ID, just something that has their name and face associated with it. So that way, when they take a picture of their ID card, these two pieces will then show up side by side. So now you have two different ways to confirm that it's the right student taking the assessment. And then you have the environment check. Your environment check is subjective. Every instructor has a different philosophy on how to do this, but basically it's where you use your webcam to show that your testing area is free of those prohibited materials we spoke about before. And we're going to actually conduct an environment check as a student in just a few moments, so you'll get an idea of what I think is really truly necessary. And then additional instructions are just anything you want to convey before they begin the assessment. So this is kind of like your last touch point with a student before they begin the exam, such as maybe stay seated, don't move, remember you signed the honor code, you please do not have access to other resources such as textbooks, notes, phones, etc. You know, those types of things. Basically anything you want to convey here can be entered in. And then once you've decided which option you want to choose, maybe you want to edit the text here to be a little bit more descriptive in how you want students to do things. Then you hit save and close. And now you see this quiz clearly requires the webcam in parentheses, has the LockDown browser requirement enabled, and now both columns are required in green. So again, Your role in this whole process is extremely easy, very easy to enable from that perspective. Now, let's just show you what the end result looks like. Let's pretend that you have a group of students, they've used this tool. Now, let's show you what the outcome is. Once your students have used Respondus Monitor, when you come back into this dashboard, this video review option will now be available to you. And when I select this, it's going to give you a dashboard of your entire class. So from here, you'll see all of your students, first and last names. You'll see the date and time that the assessment was completed. You'll see the duration of how long it took them to complete the assessment, whether or not they use Respondus Monitor, which is indicated by webcam here. But if you opted to give them the option of using LockDown Browser at a proctored site or Respondus Monitor, and they selected LockDown Browser on its own, well, then this would show up as lab. So that way you know why there's no video available. It's because they went to a lab in a proctored site to be proctored with LockDown Browser. And then you get their grade. So from here you can decide, is any further investigation warranted? You as an instructor are going to know your students better than anybody. So at this point you might say, this is pretty much on par for what I noticed for this particular group, so at this point I'm done. You might have a suspicion on a student, or maybe even a group of students, and you want to go in and see if the student was maybe being honest during that assessment. I know some instructors that use this tool for up to 300 to 500 students that they teach in one course. That's a lot of students. So what they do is they're more concerned about the top 5% of their course versus every single student, because typically if students are cheating, then it would be that top 5% that would be getting those good grades. So it's good to focus your efforts there than on everybody else. So again, so depending on what type of criteria that you use, once you click on a student's name, you'll see everything that was captured during that entire testing session. Now, the intent and goal of Respondus Monitor, first and foremost, is not to have an instructor watching a video of a student taking assessment. First of all, it'd be a complete waste of your time, and second of all, it's totally unnecessary. We created Respondus Monitor to act as a major deterrent to cheating. So that way, when you're putting this type of technology in place, you're telling your students that you're essentially leveling the playing field, and you're reducing the pressure on those students who feel that they need to cheat in order to stay competitive. Because quite honestly, every institution has certain departments that have very high standards for their online courses, which means if you don't maintain a certain GPA, there's a chance that you can be kicked out of the program. So with that being said, students almost kind of feel that they need to cheat in order to stay at that high level. So this is taking that pressure away to tell them that, hey, you don't have to cheat. We're leveling the playing field for all students with this type of technology. But what we've done to make this process easy for you is we have captured the entire testing session, but we've broken it out into these rough 1-minute time increments. So all you need to do is do a quick scan over these thumbnails to see if something looks amiss, such as a head turns, maybe a head missing in a frame, maybe multiple heads in a frame, maybe a student's talking on the phone or clearly doing something that they shouldn't. So with a quick sweep, if you see something that looks suspicious, you can click during that segment in time and then watch to the right to see, is it really an issue or is it completely a non-issue? You know, the student was turning their head simply to take a drink of water. And also because Respondus Monitor is picking up the ambient sound in the room, you can also hear if there's anything going on in the background as well. So again, if you notice something, you can say that you reviewed it, you flagged this video, and now maybe you're going to talk to that student about what you noticed within that time increment during the assessment. And this is just kind of a little note to you to know where to go back to pull up that information. I would say on average it takes anywhere between 15 and 20 seconds to scan these thumbnails and then quickly go on to the next student. So it really doesn't take much time whatsoever. If you look up here at the top, this is that startup sequence that I spoke about before. We purposely left this photo on file empty because we know institutions have either avatars or photos of students that they use for their own purpose. So if you wanted to upload your photo here, you can upload your photo and then compare it to the student's photo and then compare that against their ID card. So then you have 3 different ways to help confirm student identity to make sure it's the person who should be taking the assessment. And if you're curious what their environment video looks like, you can simply click on the video to make sure that they followed whatever instructions that you had in place. Typically, we ask students just to show their desktop. You know, we want to make sure that they don't have, excuse me, have any notes out or phones or textbooks or anything of that nature. Keep in mind, this is just a dummy course with one of our marketing folks. So we're just trying to give you an idea of what that would look like. So that way, if a student does have anything out, you know, you would pick it up in that environment check very quickly there. All of these videos exist on our Amazon Web Services cloud server for a minimum of a year. So you have instant access to these videos for up to a year. And the only people who have access to it would be the instructor, as well as somebody who would have Blackboard level admin access to Blackboard. And then the videos are retained for up to 5 years. So if you need to restore a video, maybe even 3 or 4 years down the road, maybe a student's refuting a grade, you can easily restore that video for viewing at that time. Okay, and again, just to show you another picture, this is about as exciting as it gets. You know, if a student's actually just looking at their computer screen, there's typically not a lot of action actually happening on the screen itself. So that's why this process goes extremely fast. All right, let me actually go through the browser real quick, show you what it looks like from the student side, and then we'll start to get closer to answering some of your questions in just a few moments. So we're going to log in as a student. We're actually going to go through the exact same steps that we did just a few moments ago. Of course, I got to make sure I spell my password properly here so I can get back in. We're going to go back into that same course. And what we're going to do is we'll go back to the content area, select that quiz that clearly has the webcam in parentheses here. We're going to hit begin. I have this set up for unlimited attempts for today's demonstration, so it's going to ask me if I want to take it one more time, which I'm going to say OK. And now instead of being launched into LockDown browser exam, it's going to take the student directly into the startup sequence, which you can see up here at the very top. The first part of the startup sequence is called the terms of use. There's a terms of use agreement between our company and the student, and then there's a component between your institution and the student. The piece between your institution and the student can be edited by you. So if you wanted to change things up, maybe put your own language in place, feel free to do so. I know some of my customers prefer to include their honor code here, because before students can go any further, they have to click agree to go on to the next step, which is the webcam check. Hi, everybody. Once I see my image in the window, I'm going to record a 5-second video. And this is going to determine that my webcam is functioning properly, both from the audio as well as the video standpoint. And then what it's going to do is actually going to play that video back to me over here on the left to confirm that everything is functioning properly. Hopefully you can hear that okay. Hopefully you can see it fine. If I was having difficulty, there is a troubleshooting link called It's Not Working. This would allow me to identify and troubleshoot the webcam on my own. Typically, if a student has problems here, it's because they forgot to plug in their webcam, which means they probably had something else plugged into their computer. So very easy to identify, and it's really a non-issue. Click Continue to move forward. Second piece is the photo, so we'll take a photo of ourselves, and we can use that as our picture if we like. The next step is to show your ID. So I'm going to show you my student ID card here. And again, just has something with my name and face associated with it. I work from home, so I'm going to show you what's pretty typical of a student from doing this from home. So I'm going to start my environment check. I'm going to show you my home office and my desktop just to prove to you that I don't have anything out on my desk that I shouldn't. That's my computer screen, that's my keyboard, my mouse. I'm just typically showing you the wall behind me. There's nothing there. So everything looks good. Everything's clean and clear. I'm going to stop the recording. It's going to do exactly what the webcam check did. It's going to play that video back to the student just in case they need to review it. Maybe the student needs to do it again if they didn't follow directions the first time, or they can just review it to make sure everything looks good. But I'm pretty comfortable with what I did, so I'm just going to hit continue. I'm going to hit continue to move forward. That's just asking me if my webcam is positioned in the right spot. And then this is basically any additional instructions you want to convey, such as stay seated, don't move. You shouldn't have any access to phones, tablets, notes, books, etc., or communicate with others. Stay in your seat. Focus on the computer screen until the exam is complete. You know, anything you want to convey here can be created. Hit begin the exam. Now the student will be launched into that LockDown browser testing environment. So now you have the understanding what LockDown browser can do. So all of those rules are still in play here. The only difference the student would physically notice on the screen is in the upper right-hand corner that their camera icon is indicating that they're being recorded. That's about it. Everything else is functioning and working exactly the same. So at this point, I'm just going to go through and just quickly take this exam one more time. I can submit it. Once I submit it, there's a dialog box that pops up. So if students want to provide feedback back to our developers based on their experience, they can. So if they had an issue, they can report back to us. If not, just exit out of the box and then exit out of the browser. And that's it. So that's basically how the Respondus Monitor tool works. Let me just talk to you a little bit about licensing, and then I'll open up the floor to any questions that you might have. Basically, in terms of licensing both of these tools, there's a LockDown browser cost first. The LockDown browser includes unlimited use of the browser itself, installations of the browser anywhere and everywhere you want to use it. It includes the building block integration, a student version of the browser, as well as a lab version of the browser. And then there's 200 free seats of Monitor. So basically, anybody that buys a LockDown browser license on its own, we include these free Monitor seats that can be used on a very small scale evaluation. So that way, if schools aren't quite ready for a non-proctoring tool, but they might be ready sometime in the near future, but they truly have a need for a proctoring tool on campus, then those seats are designed for a small scale trial once you start exploring those non-proctoring needs. And then if you want to add Respondus Monitor, you would simply, we have two different pricing models. You can pay $39.50 for unlimited use for your first year. So all campus-wide customers, regardless of your size, will pay $39.50. This really allows you to have an affordable but scalable solution to use this on all of your online assessments. Or we have a student purchase option. A student purchase option allows the student to pick up the cost of Respondus Monitor, but your institution would still pay for a LockDown browser, and that would only be $10 per student per course. So if you had a student that was taking 4 online courses in a term, and they wanted to use Respondus Monitor, well then it would be only $40 because it's $10 per course, and that would cover all of their online assessments on all of those courses. So it's still truly a good price point for the student too. Okay, so these are just kind of a couple of reiterations what I covered today. I'm not going to read these aloud, but I'll just leave them on the screen if you want to kind of read through them really quick. I do want to point out on our website that we do put our pricing out there for all to see. So I'm very proud that our company is very forthcoming with pricing. So if you click on LockDown Browser, we have demo movies here. So for those of you that need a refresher on how to use this tool or just want to see it again, you can watch a quick movie here on how to use it. We also have instructor trainings that we offer each and every month. These trainings are not designed to sell you our tools. They're really designed to help you better use them. So feel free to register and sign up for any of these trainings that we offer each and every month. These dates change all the time, so feel free to frequently check in to see what's coming up. We also have resources on our website. We don't want you to have to create anything from scratch. We want you to choose what we have already and make it your own. So if you're struggling with how to install the browser or information to include on your syllabus, feel free to copy and paste what we've created here and then include it on your syllabus yourself. So this is just a great way to help communicate what this tool is to your students. We have quick start guides for both students and instructors. So if you're a visual learner and you really need to see how it works, this will give you screenshots of the application and explain exactly how to use it. We have it for students too. We have a free 2-month trial that you can try this out free for 2 months. No obligation other than just to test it out to see if it meets any needs. And our pricing for LockDown Browser is right on our website. I'm not sure which FTE range you fall into. It's probably around here, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be the price you would pay for unlimited use of LockDown Browser. And then if you click on Monitor, we also have the same resources, webinars, that type of thing here. But then we also further explain our pricing model for Monitor. So that $39.50 cost or that student purchase cost. Okay. I would like to go ahead and open the floor to any questions. So at this
Unmuted.
And feel free to ask any questions at this time.
Nick, thank you very much. Several of us were wondering when you were going to show us a picture of yourself so we could confirm your identity. and that you really worked for Respondus. So we were glad that you showed us that video of yourself. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
You're welcome.
I've got a
You're welcome.
microphone which you all have to use to ask Nick questions, but if you have any questions, I can pass it to you. Everyone's thinking. Catherine's got a question.
If there has been a power outage and a student is in the middle of an exam, do you have to go back and when you reset the exam for the student, also reset the lockdown?
That's a great question. And you know, especially from taking assessments from home, you just never know what type of internet connection or Wi-Fi that students have access to. So basically what we do is we kind of say as a rule of thumb, instructor, and this is just typical of any online testing, we usually recommend that instructors set up an exam for at least 2 attempts. So that way if the student is having trouble with the particular assessment with internet, then they would at least have another attempt to get back in and either finish where they left off. So that way when you go to your grade center and you see 2 attempts, you'll be able to decide, do I want to accept the first one? And if so, you know, I'll talk to the student and figure out what was happening. If it was truly related to internet connectivity issues, what Respondus Monitor will do a really good job of doing is in this video review option here, it will show how many attempts have been taken. So you can see in this Ava Campbell example, there's 3 attempts here. This is our demo site again, so this is just showing you the different attempts that the student was taking. But also if the browser lost internet, for example, this area here will populate, say, the student lost internet connection at such and such a time, so that way you can validate exactly what happened during an assessment. So if the student said, yes, I did lose internet, you can come in here and see that there was actually no video for that period of time. But also the LockDown browser is a diagnostic tool built in to autofill this notes and warnings area to let you know and confirm that that's exactly what happened.
That's great.
So hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Everyone's looking. You can't confirm our identity. It could just be me changing my voice.
And just so you know, from our experience in talking with students and instructors, there's a lot of different solutions out there. You're probably exploring some now, or maybe you've seen some in the past, but from what we hear, because it's only a webcam and it's not like a third party, like a live person watching a student, students feel more comfortable using a type of technology like this because they know the only people who have access to the video would be the instructor or somebody, again, that would have like Blackboard level admin access to the content. And there's no extra pressure with having that live person staring at you during the assessment because it's just a webcam. So it's really less invasive and students feel a little bit more comfortable in knowing that that's the technology that's in place. Okay, well,
Hold on a
if
second.
you have any questions?
Go ahead,
Oh,
Wayne.
you have one? Okay, great. Sure.
Just one other question about the use of webcams. If a student's, I guess they have to have a webcam to use the monitor. Do we provide webcams to students if we do this? Is that what the other schools have done? Have they provided webcams to all students?
That's a great question. Some schools have. I would say most of them don't. The reason being is that because webcams are so inexpensive at this point, I think on Amazon, last time I checked, you could buy a brand new one for like under $10. And most computers nowadays have webcams built in, so this will work with internal webcams as well as external webcams. So depending on the size of the school or the type of school, they might not. They might just say, student, if you want to use this, then your only requirement would be to buy a webcam. But if you don't have one or if you can't afford one, we're not going to force you to purchase one. You can still come on campus and we'll proctor you in whatever proctoring setting we have, and you would just use LockDown browser. So depending on the convenience factor for the student, if they live far enough away, and I know Texas is a very big state, and your student could be on the western part of the state, which could take them, you know, a day to get there. Having that $10 fee for the monitor, or just buying the monitor themselves, might save them, you know, even just some gas money to get back and forth. It might be worth it for them.
That's a long ride on a horse.
Yeah, it sure is.
We actually are, I believe our global student tech requirements actually ask them to have a webcam to do coursework with us because there's so many
Oh.
things that need webcams these days in their actual coursework. So, but good question, Wayne.
That's very good, yeah. That's great.
Anything else? Sorry we can't provide you with lunch, but we had
Well,
great
that's
cold
okay.
cuts and fruit, and thank you, Elizabeth, and Amy for your help in getting that prepared. Anything else? Well, Nick, I think that's it. We very much appreciate your time with us today and taking the opportunity to show us this. I know what Nick said at the beginning, that Colleen has been letting us know as well. There's a chance that we may get asked to use some of this technology as part of either a principal in SACS or as part of Title IV. Many things could happen that would require us to prove the identity of our students. Not only just online, but even on ground. We've got situations where people will surrogate for a student and get a degree, and it's not really the person that's getting the degree. But anyway, it gets all messy. So identity is getting important in our delivering of our education. So
Absolutely.
last chance.
Well, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, go ahead, Nick.
Well, thanks everybody. Again, just thank you for the opportunity to present these tools today. If anything comes up after today, there's my email address. Feel free to send me a note privately. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. And if I don't hear from you, then I hope you have a great rest of the day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you again.